Back at it again. It's Last Call with Caden, Colford, and Jake Helton here live at UINDY Studios. We start the action off as basketball took a trip to Illinois. First Illinois Springfield and then McKendree. We'll start with this women's squad as they took on the University of Illinois Springfield. This game was wild, absolutely wild, back and forth all game. In the fourth quarter, after being down 5 points with 1 minute left, UINDY plays the free throw game. You know how this works out. Jake. You're down by 5 with not a lot of time left. You play the free throw game. You get lucky. Kayla Rice misses a bunch of free throws, and somehow you have a chance to go tie the game with about 10 seconds left. They do just that. Amira Sapiter, step back three on the right wing. You go to overtime. Okay, you get into overtime, and again, you're in the bonus, couple minutes left, and you play the free throw game again. You're still within 2, but you're a closer chance to win. Somehow, you tie it up, UIS ties it up with 2 seconds left in the ball game. You run an inbounds play, just like you ran stack in middle school. The player closest to the inbounder does a big banana squirrel to the basket. You throw the lob, toss it in, layups made from Jalen Murray, and that's the game-winning basket. Or supposedly, with 0.2 seconds left. UIS has the ability to pass it in. The ball gets passed in on the catch, 40 feet out. UINDY fouls with 0.2 seconds in the double bonus. But the foul's waved off. UINDY wins, and they're booed off the court in Springfield. A crazy game, to say the least, but, kind of fitting for the season for the Hounds.
Yeah, definitely one to remember. On top of that, Alana Wells becomes the 25th Greyhound in school history to reach 1,000 career points. So congratulations to her for a big career milestone. But on top of that, it comes in a very exciting and a very big win at that. The Greyhounds really needed to win out. Unfortunately, they would fall to McKendree on Saturday. 23 turnovers. It's going to make it hard to do, but a bright spot in that one. Greyhounds reached 18 assists for the second time this season, which is a good thing to see if you're Coach Sharp.
Yeah, definitely. That's a high number in a good category, right? Because you've been looking for a team that has somewhat been struggling in the half court. So for them to be able to get out and transition and move the ball as well as they did is a good sign. However, as we look into the GLVC standings, they're not exactly sitting pretty. Still have Southwest Baptist, Upper Iowa, and Truman to work through to try to crack the top 8, which is near impossible, but you never say never when you look at this team. Right behind us, you're looking at the Great Lakes Valley Conference's point system, so it's not necessarily just your record that gets you to Lindenwood. It is who you beat and where you beat them. And you'll see Indianapolis at the 10th spot right now, about 0.2 points away from Truman when they've played one more game. So a lot to line out in the coming weeks, that is. But as we take a look at the schedule, Indianapolis for them this Saturday, starting even this Thursday, they have Lewis, which is going to be a tough game against a ranked team nationally. And then on Saturday, you would have an off day, it looks like, for Indianapolis at that point. So you let these other teams catch up. A long road, a tall hill, but not impossible.
Yeah, definitely not impossible. They've got one good step or a big step in the right direction with the game against Lewis. A win in that one against the number 1 team, that's a lot of points right there. That's
as many points as you can get, as many points as you can pick up.
That might be what you need to hop that spot right there, make it in at 8. The Greyhounds definitely have an opportunity. Like you said, it's not a great one, but never count the Greyhounds out. As we look over to a team that does have a pretty good chance of making it in, the men's team, they picked up a very valuable win this weekend over McKendree, 76-72, the score in that one. But first, going back to that UIS game, the Greyhounds drop one. Unfortunate shooting performance there. Yeah. Deshaun Jackson, he was second in scoring with 14 points. He was 4 of 11 from the three-point line. Dylan Ingram led all scorers for the Greyhounds with 15. He was 3 of 8 from the three-point line. So you can kind of see the trend of they fell in love with the three-point line. The three-point line didn't love them back. It sounded like my Valentine's Day, to be quite honest.
Well, Jackson, he comes back with a big game against McKendree. He had 19 with 3 steals and 3 assists. He also went 8 for 9 from the free throw line. That's very, very important in this game because, again, as you get into the closing minutes, in the bonus, you had to ice this game from the line, and it took a couple tries, but Jackson was the one who got it done, and he was the guy that you were calling upon all night, and he had the answer most time for the Greyhounds. But I also want to call out Tucker Tornada. The freshman has been big and was huge, energy-wise especially, in this McKendree game. In the final couple minutes, he had a powerful slam, got his bench up, quieted down the gym at McKendree, which was a big deal playing on the road, and such a big win, which has huge implications when it comes time to look at where you might be come that conference tournament. And as it sits right now, if we look at where this men's team is at on the screen behind us, you'll see Indianapolis right at the 9th spot. They just beat number 8 McKendree. That is absolutely huge, especially since it's on the road. You're within even 0.1 of a point. So look, as we head into the schedule for men's basketball on the slate this week, Indianapolis plays a tough Lewis squad. You have Rob Stroud to work through, who's been seemingly dropping 30 points a contest on everybody but the Greyhounds to this point. And McKendree, they have a very favorable game. Obviously, Greyhounds are hoping for a loss in that one, but they play against 13th-ranked Quincy at just 2.31 points on the season. So the Greyhounds still control their own fate to an extent, but you're definitely hoping that Quincy pulls out a big one against McKendree.
Yeah, and I think that UIS game was one that you go in and you really expected to win that one. You've won a couple of good ones, an unfortunate loss to UMSL in the last seconds of that one, but I think you see a lot of good things out of this team, and if they do get that chance at that 8th spot, they could be the team that messes things up like we've seen McKendree do in the past against UIndy. We saw them come in as an 8 seed and beat the Greyhounds last year. So you look at this team and, well, you can't really count them out for one, as you have said, but two, they've got scorers all the way around. 5 scorers on the court at all times. You just mentioned it. Tucker Tornada coming into his own. Someone else who's really bringing the energy, Kelvin Amoko. Yeah. Coach has talked about him pretty much every interview the past couple of weeks and how he's really becoming more of an important piece of this team after a not-so-great start to the season. He's really turning things around, shooting about 50% from the free throw line, which is always a good thing for coaches to see. But I think that this is a team that can really make some noise, especially when you look at the way that they played against Missouri St. Louis, who has now taken 2 losses in conference play. So they're a team that is obviously not unbeatable, and the Greyhounds proved that, but they've got to close out, got to play a full 40 minutes because we've seen them play about 30, 32 good minutes of basketball, but it's that last 8 minutes that really put them as the top 5 team.
And you know, Jake, it was funny. Evan and I were walking out of the building at McKendree, the Harry M. Statham Sports Center. I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that. As we walk out, you'd expect to see a big smile on Coach Hetty's face. It wasn't exactly a huge grin, but he did say this is 1, right? You're on your way there. You picked up 1. You get about 4 to go, and it's a tough Lewis squad up next. But we'll keep tabs on them, keep you updated on where UIndy basketball sits in the coming weeks. As for swimming and diving, their conference just concluded, and their season comes to an end as women's swimming and diving, they're the runners-up, and the men take 3rd place at the GLVC Championship meet this past weekend, with a couple of swimmers being acknowledged. Cedric Busing, an Olympian here at the university, was named Swimmer of the Year and broke the Division II record in the 500 free. So records being shattered, even though you have that 3rd place mark, which is still great. Probably not up to the standard of UIndy swimming, but still a great accolade for him. And also Alexis Lumai, Women's Diver of the Year. So UIndy continues to rack up the accolades, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a bunch of former national champions. Obviously, you mentioned it, an Olympian in the presence of this team. So greatness all the way around. And I think that's a cool part of this campus is that everywhere you look, there's national champions. You got the softball team, you got the women's golf team, now you got a couple of swim teams in there as well. But obviously not the outcome you wanted to. I think from what I've heard, they're dealing with a similar situation as Coach Hetty, just not a full roster out there for the swim team. That's what they needed this year. And unfortunately, there were some tough squads in the GLVC. But we're looking for them to come back stronger next year.
For sure. And obviously, it's basketball season with baseball season right around the corner. Super Bowl just ended, but that means free agency picks up for the Colts soon. And Jake and I have our own thoughts on it. We'll talk about it next.
Good morning, Greyhounds. your weekly dose of Greyhound entertainment.
I think if you watch our team, they have fun. You know, they have fun playing.
There's so much that you can do to get the most out of yours.
Our alumni care deeply about the success of this university.
Come here. Watch Good Morning Greyhounds every Saturday at 9 a.m. Catch us on UINDY TV's YouTube channel and Xfinity channel 1096.
Super Bowl wraps up. Eagles get to hold a trophy over the rest of the National Football League for this year, but every other team goes to the drawing boards, right? Colts included in that mix after what I would definitely consider a disappointment of a season all around. Coaching, players, front office, you name it. So definitely you go back to the chalkboard, look what you can do to improve this upcoming season. And Jake, I'll turn to you first to ask, where do you need the most improvements if you're the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, I think that's an interesting question because there are a lot of different places that you could point to.
Take your pick.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of the thing.
Take your pick.
Defense wasn't up to par in my opinion. I think it could have been a lot better than it was this year. We've seen some elite Colts defenses. This was not one of them. The offensive line took a step back from what it has been in the past, but I think that's to improve in the season coming. Anthony Richardson didn't perform as well as people wanted him to. He had those couple of games where he was in and out with Joe Flacco. I think that's somewhere you improve with. There's been talks of bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Don't know that I agree with that. Don't know that anybody in the Colts fan base agrees with that at all. But if you're the Colts management, don't do that. Do not do that. Don't bring him in here. But I think that if you get Anthony Richardson, someone who will compete with him, someone other than Sam Ehlinger, get him out of there. Don't re-sign him. Leave him on the bench. Leave him where he should be.
Sam Ehlinger, huh?
No. Leave him out. Do not re-sign Sam Ehlinger because what value does he provide to the team other than sitting there as a third-string quarterback? I would like them to bring in someone that can at least compete. You don't need a third-string quarterback that's going to start, but you need someone that can at least provide some competition in practice.
On that list for quarterbacks, you have guys such as Joe Flacco. You could bring him back. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson both have their contract expired in free agency as it sits right now. Sam Darnold, another name thrown out there, had a good year for the Vikings. And it has been said that the Colts are looking for some competition in the QB room. So in alignment with Anthony Richardson, someone to give him a challenge, also bring the best out of him, but also if he's not going to be named that starter, someone to put under center. I'd like Russell Wilson. If you're going to go get anybody, I feel like he's almost in the same boat as Aaron Rodgers, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers brings so much unwanted attention, so much disdain to locker room, I feel like. And I feel like as a mentor, Russell Wilson would be a lot better of a pickup than Anthony Richardson, while also giving him a competent quarterback to compete against.
Well, I think if you're talking about being a mentor, Russell Wilson is definitely a step ahead. Aaron Rodgers, talking about someone who doesn't even show up to training camp, doesn't show up to spring practices, really hasn't shown that he wants to be a part of the team other than the 4 hours that you play the game on Sunday. But I think that if you do bring in Russell Wilson, you're going to have to make him the starter. I don't think he's going to, want to go somewhere where he's going to be in another situation like he was with Justin Fields. But he's also probably got 2 or 3 more years left of playing at this level. So you bring him in and you're not going to start him. I think, A, that's a waste of money. And B, I think that's a waste of his time. So if you're going to bring someone in, you're either going to make them the starter over Anthony Richardson and either let him go or maybe let him sit for a couple of years, or you're going to say, we're just going to bring in a backup, we're going to keep Anthony Richardson, that's how we're going to roll. I think this is the year that the Colts really had to make a decision, because if you keep going back and forth, that's going to play on Anthony Richardson's confidence, it's going to play on the fan base. They're not going to know who to support, who to not support. There were games where they were people were holding signs up saying fire everybody in the organization. AR should be starting, blah, 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 blah. If the fans think it, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the right thing, but in that case, even though I was against it, I think that he probably should have been starting all year long. But if you're going to bring in someone like a Russell Wilson, he's got to be your starter.
Yeah, and all of that to pass to Alec Pierce, right? And whoever you want to bring in free agency. We're going to talk about it, but first, who do we have already in Indianapolis that we would like to see? That's the question that we're asking here on Last Call. And for me, I'm looking on the defensive end and I'm looking at Dayo Odeyingbo, right? This guy leads the team in pressures on the Colts, which is so valuable to me because that's on a line with DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye, and those guys have more sacks, right? Which is why they're going to pick up more money, more attention in the media. But it's guys like this that really hold your defense together. It's guys like this that pave the ways and open up the gaps for your linebackers like EJ Speed and other guys like that to go in and make the big plays. And Odeyingbo also has big play potential. 3 forced fumbles on the year and a couple of big sacks to go alongside that. And when I look at this guy, I think in terms of what he brings back, it'd be a luxury to re-sign him because I feel like he's going a little bit higher on in the market than the Indianapolis Colts would like to pay him at this point. But for his position, relatively cheap comparatively to going out and getting out a superstar, and that still leaves the gap open to go sign someone big if you would like to do that to this point. But a lot of it is a pace game on defense and putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which is just something that the Indianapolis Colts have struggled to do on a consistent basis. And that's why I feel like their opponent's completion percentage is almost dead last. Almost dead last. I feel like it's because quarterbacks are too comfortable against the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I think the pressure definitely was not there this year as it has been in years past. And kind of another name that you said, EJ Speed, he's another one that his contract's expiring. But the thing is with all these players, that, like you said, they're going to want more money. And that's the problem that the Colts have is they don't necessarily have all that money to give players, especially like him. Another guy that I'm looking at Will Fries on that offensive line. He only played 5 games last year, but you look at the line, it really needs rebuild. He's a solid guy. He's going to be there. He's going to be that piece that you can really build around on the offensive line. So if you want a guy that you're confident in, you want someone that Anthony Richardson can kind of have that Peyton Manning, Jeff Saturday bond with, I think this is the guy that you try and make that piece and really get, because that's the problem. I feel like there's not as much chemistry with this Colts team. I think that's something that hasn't really been talked about a ton, but you look at Anthony Richardson, he's been in and out of the starting position. You don't get that same rhythm playing with the same 11 guys as so maybe the Bengals. Let's look at them. They play the same 11 players pretty much all season. The line had a couple of injuries. That's something you deal with as a football team. But you're playing for the majority of your 17, 18 games. You're playing with the same 11 guys. You build a routine, a rhythm. You start to just get a feel for where people are going to be. And people wonder why Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have that connection. It's because they played so many games together. That's something I'd look for Anthony Richardson to find that receiver, find his Jamar Chase, I should say, because right now he doesn't really have one. Everyone thought it was going to be Michael Pittman, but this year, a very bad down year for Michael Pittman, in my opinion. I'm expecting way more out of him in the season coming.
I'm also expecting more out of this offensive line. I think giving your guy here more time to develop as an offensive lineman on a unit and build that chemistry with other guys on Indianapolis would definitely be huge and would bid the entire team plus Anthony Richardson well for sure. So who should the Colts go out and get now is who we turn to. And you kind of got on this a little bit. You were talking about Joe Burrow finding his Jamar Chase. I'm not looking too far away from Jamar Chase here. If the Colts want to go out and make a big move, go out and get a playmaker. Go out and get a playmaker in T. Higgins. T. Higgins had a great year for Cincinnati. He had a great year for Cincinnati. And the Colts need a guy that can go out and be a number one. Michael Pittman was supposed to be that guy. He wasn't. I'm looking not too far away. Not too far of a drive for T. Higgins. Not too far of a move. Only take a couple trucks and he'll be nice and steady in Indy.
Yeah, we were thinking exactly the same thing. I don't know what it is about T. Higgins, but he has got to be every team's most appealing option right now, especially for that wide receiver room. He's coming off of a not-so-big contract, expecting a very big contract next year. So whatever team does get him, they're going to have to cough up quite a bit of money, and that's the problem that the Bengals are having right now. Something that I find kind of interesting, talks that Joe Burrow is going to be willing to take a pay cut so that the Bengals can get different players. I find that a little bit interesting because it's not something most players are willing to do for their team.
That's for sure.
But he made a very good point. That's exactly what the Eagles did. Saquon's not making as much money in Philly as he would or could have in New York, but it's because he wanted to win a Super Bowl, and obviously that's the right formula. So The best way, in my opinion, is the Colts go out and find those cost-efficient superstars, the ones that aren't costing you 50% of your salary cap, 35% of your salary cap, but they're going to go out and produce like someone who you really need on your team. You need those guys that you're paying a lot of money to because they're going to be the big pieces of your team. You look at maybe the Pacers. They're paying 2 people $42 million right now. Well, they've only got $100 million for the rest of their team. That's what I want the Colts to do. I want the Colts to get someone really good and then kind of space out the rest of those dollars for the rest of the team.
Well, Colts are going thrifting this offseason, that's for sure, trying to find some Aldi brand, if you will, superstars. And speaking of the Pacers, we're going to talk about them in just a few minutes, how their season's looking.
National, local, campus, headlines you won't find anywhere else. From the White House to your community, we've got you covered. Stay informed and stay connected. Don't miss out on the stories shaping our world. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. UINDY TV News.
We're back and shifting gears after the Daytona 500 yesterday. And we're moving to the NBA, talking about some basketball and more specifically the Pacers. And right now they're 4th in the East. Not doing too bad in terms of where at least I would thought they would have been this season. But Jake, your thoughts on the Pacers, where they sit and where they will be in the coming weeks and months?
Well, I mean, right now they sit at 4th in the East. Last time I checked, they've got a couple of very good teams in the Knicks, Cavs, and Celtics right above them. So you're looking at a very good Pacers team in the month of January. They went 10-2 in January. You look at that, Pascal Siakam, he's been averaging about 20 points per game. He's had 31 games this season with 20 or more points. You look at Tyrese Haliburton, he's had 17 of those games with 20 or more points. He's had 15 double-doubles, kind of more of what I was calling for from him, those games where he's either getting double-digit assists, double-digit rebounds, providing something other than scoring. And then kind of to what I was saying, Pascal Siakam, he's provided that really number one scoring option. He's 53% from the field as it sits right now. He's averaging 7.3 rebounds. I think that's a big thing because Miles Turner, he's only averaging 6.6 rebounds. So you look at that, I'm going to give them a B+ right now just because of how January went. And if they hadn't have done as well in January as they had, we might have been looking at probably a C, but they've really brought it back. I think they were just outside or sitting in one of those play-in games before January. They go 10-2. Now they're in 4th in the East. But you look at them, they're 2-1 against the Celtics, 1-2 versus the Knicks, 0-2 versus Milwaukee, and 0-4 versus the top 5 teams in the West. So they're not winning those big games as much as you would like, but they are starting to find a little bit more consistency as we head towards the end of the season.
And I'm with you. I'm in the B category as well, but probably right there at a solid B for Indiana. And I'm right there with you on what this team can do this season with what they have currently. But you look at games like LA. They go out and lose to Los Angeles without LeBron and without Luka, and you're letting Austin Reeves drop 40 on you. And then it's about winning games against a team that you need to win games against. You mentioned the Knicks, Bucks, and Celtics. That's your playoffs. That's your playoffs. If you can't beat those 3 teams, then you can be as good as you want. You can go 75-7 in the regular season, and it won't mean anything because you're gonna get beat by these teams that are whooping you, and who the team. Look, Pacers are not playing well against the teams that they need to play well against, and that's just the way it's been.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing is if you look at the Pacers when they are playing good, they're playing very good. But when you look at them when they're playing bad, they're playing really bad basketball. We watched them against the Magic. I believe they won that game that we attended, but it was one of those ones where you just were like, why is this such a boring game to watch? I'm not having a good time. I'm going to go get a milkshake and have a 500-calorie or 5,000-calorie sugar rush just to get me excited to watch this fourth quarter. That's what I need out of the Pacers. I need some exciting basketball, kind of to what you were saying, that brand of Pascal Siakam backing someone down for 10 seconds. It's not the most entertaining basketball in the world, and that's kind of what I see when I watch a Pacers game, and I think that's probably what a lot of people see. You got to one time he was all NBA, or excuse me, he was, all NBA first team. That was Tyrese Halliburton, or I think he was second team actually. But why are you paying him $42 million to score 16 points a game and only grab you a couple boards and a couple assists? That's your all-star. To compare that to a couple of other teams that are paying people quite a bit of money, look at the Cavs. I look at that as a team that's kind of similar to the Pacers. They're spending a lot of their money on two people. They're paying Donovan Mitchell $35 million. Then you look at Tyrese Halliburton, he's making $42 million. I would argue, and I don't think many people would disagree with me, Donovan Mitchell is better than Tyrese Halliburton, hands down. And he's got a lot less of, or a little bit lower of a contract heading into the next years. It picks up value. But Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, I think Pascal Siakam is the better player, but why are we paying so much money to these two people for them not to be the best players in the NBA? You look vice versa to the Lakers. They're paying that exact amount to Luka and LeBron. It's about 40 and 43 million, I believe. So I would argue that both of them are better than Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. Why are we paying them so much money just to have the other 4 or 5 people on the court not be very good? I disagree with that decision. I think you spread out the money. You don't necessarily need a big 3, but I think the more you can spend on your role players, kind of what the Heat did in 2020. They spent a lot of money on role players, and that ended up getting them getting them to the championship where they eventually lost to the Lakers. But that run was all because of the pieces that Eric Spoelstra built around his stars.
You know, growing up watching basketball, we've seen this team have great offensive games, but one stat that sticks out to me and is a huge red flag in my book is this team is 28th in the league in total rebounding. So that means if you have a night off shooting the ball, there's no chance that you're going to win. There's no second chance at all, and that means that you're not closing out defensive possessions as well. And teams, like you said, in the Knicks, in Boston, and Milwaukee, all 3 of those teams are amazing rebounding teams. Not good, but top-tier rebounding teams in the National Basketball Association. So that stat right there is why I think the Pacers can have a good regular season and have a good 3-game series, but not 7. And that's disappointing, but we have a couple weeks to work on that and to see what will happen until the postseason gets here.
Yeah, I think that you really need that consistency when you're looking for that team that you want to pick as your champion. But another thing to look at is that they are ranked 22nd in defense right now. That's what their defense is rated. They're allowing as many points as they score per game. You're not going to be a team that's going to win a national or an NBA championship, when you have those stats right there. You got to be able to play defense, because when the 3-point ball is not going in, you got to be able to lock down on the other side of the court so you can get more possessions, different things like that. It's just the little stuff that the Pacers aren't doing exactly right. Rebounding, exactly as you said. Your centers are averaging less than 10 rebounds combined right now. Combined, less than 10 rebounds. You're not going to win any basketball games when your centers are averaging, I think it's like 9.3 rebounds combined. That is a pitiful stat.
Well, that's the Pacers, and take all that with a grain of salt. They are 4th in the East, and they are playing really well right now. Our question is just to whether it is something that can be consistent and persist in the playoffs. But the Primetime Pick Em is upon us. Time to do it. Time to work it out. Talk about doing the little things, the big things. Time to work. Let's do it. Boston 76ers, unless you're absolutely crazy, I think we're going to be on the exact same page here. Boston wins against Philadelphia.
Yeah, the little circle on ESPN? I don't think I've ever seen it for an NBA game. I don't think I've seen it as far as it was. It was 89% Boston's going to win. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Boston on this one.
We're going with the numbers, and we're picking Boston over one of the worst teams that, the 76ers have seen in the past 6 years since, when TJ McConnell was the best player on their squad. Suns and Spurs, what are you thinking?
Well, originally I was kind of thinking the Spurs, same thing we think every single week, but De'Aaron Fox in town, Chris Paul, Wemby, he just had a good all-star game. I'm going to go with the Spurs on this one.
We're in tune. Seems like it. We're in tune and at home against the Suns, where they can be really good or not so good. More consistent Spurs team takes this one.
Yeah, I saw a stat where I believe the Suns are 14-35 against the spread, which is the worst in the NBA. So, fun little fact for you there.
Knicks and Cavs, we'll hit them quick. My vote, Knickerbockers.
All right. I'm going to go with Cleveland. I disagree with you on this one. I like Donovan Mitchell. I like Darius Garland. Never mind. No, I don't. I like the Knicks, actually. Last second change, in my opinion.
You know what? I'm glad that we knew about that last second change because that looks amazing right there. We're on par so far. Wolves and Rockets, you're up.
I'm going Rockets on this one. I did pick the Rockets on this one. There we go. I was right this time. Azure Thompson, he's been balling out for the Rockets. I think they sit at 4th place right now in the West, something like that. So give me the Rockets.
This is my game winner then. It's going to be the Timberwolves heading to Houston to take advantage of an inexperienced team. We're talking about a team that was, a couple games away from the finals last year. So let's just get right to the Lakers at Nuggets right after this one. And
well, who is going to guard Jokic? Who's going to guard the Joker? Nobody.
Doesn't matter. Lakers and 4. Lakers and 4. There we go.
I'm going to take well, I forgot what they were, but the Nuggets on this one.
All right. Who's going to guard Luka? That's my question.
It doesn't matter. Jamal Murray's locking him down. No one can guard Jokic. If you expect Jared Vanderbilt to guard Jokic, you're asking too much of yourself.
All right. Well, this will be enough to tie me back up. That's for sure.
Taking a little lead now.
Yeah. Enjoy it. Enjoy it, pal. 25-22, 27-20. This is last call. That record will change soon.